Hey everyone, welcome to another time limit audio edition. We have a very special episode today for you. We're going to be reviewing New Japan Pro Wrestling's New Beginning in Osaka card, which happened just a few hours ago in Osaka, Japan. There was some good, some bad on this card, and a really memorable main event that we're going to get into. The big headline of this show, obviously, is that it was Will Ospreay's final match before he headed over to AEW, and it was Kazuchika Okada's third last match before he also heads over to AEW per a Fightful report which came out just this morning. So we have two more dates with Okada this month, but this was the last card for Ospreay. And his match headlined the show as he had his faction United Empire take on the Bullet Club War Dogs in a 5 versus 5 steel cage match. This match, the main event, lasted more than an hour and it had so much happening in it. My notes for this match were like four different pages, and I had to really boil it down just so I'm not going to take, a million hours to get through this podcast. So I have some notes here. We're going to get through that match. We're also going to get through all the other developments on the card. We had a title change. We had Okada going one-on-one against Tanahashi, and we had a meeting between Danielson and Zack Sabre Jr. the second time they've met over the past year. That plus the undercard. So we're going to go through all of it in order, starting with this main event. And trust me, it's going to take a while to get through this. I have notes here talking about all the things we need to know about this match. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I think there were certainly some parts about it that could have been patched up, could have been changed, and we'll certainly touch on that once we get to it. But overall, my feeling on this match was it was really fun and really memorable and just a perfect send-off for Will Ospreay. There are so many different ways to have a send off from a promotion before you head to the next journey in your career. You can have a big singles match, you can have a title shot, you can have all these sort of really special high profile matches, or you can have something like this where it is a sort of rare gimmick match or a rare type of match that you would maybe almost never see in New Japan, like a steel cage tag match like this. I think going that route is just as memorable as putting on a, classic singles match. So I really did enjoy that this is the decision he made with his final New Japan match. So for those who are out of the loop, this was a 5-on-5 steel cage match, and the steel cage, it's this type of steel cage which similar to like WWE's Hell in the Cell, it covers the ring, but also the outside of the ring area. So there's, ground area outside the ring that people can brawl inside. But making it different from the Hell in a Cell cage, there's no roof to it. Actually, the sides were actually pretty short. Just I would, if I had to estimate, I'd probably say like maybe 10 feet tall or something. So nothing too crazy. I thought at first that this steel cage looked kind of weird, but it actually allowed for some really interesting spots during the match. So I did kind of come around to it, even though it had a look to it that I wasn't necessarily too much a fan of to start. So this match had special rules to it. So it was one pinfall to a finish, but it was not 5v5 to start. It started with two wrestlers in the ring, and then the plan was that every 2 minutes another wrestler would come out, so very short intervals. Now, the captains of both teams, David Finlay and Will Ospreay, started the match, and the plan was that they were going to do 2 minute intervals. But then Ospreay got on the mic and said, "This is my last match. I want to get more time with you, David Finlay. I want to go 10 minutes before the first person enters the match, or the next person enters the match." Finley, he sort of made a counter offer and said, "Okay, let's go 5 minutes." That's what they agreed on. So they went 5 minutes to start the match. It was Bullet Club who got their first member in the match, and it was Drilla Maloney who came out. It actually took me a second to realize that he was the one coming out because I feel like it's been quite a while since I heard his theme. He's usually just coming out to the Bullet Club War Dogs theme, and his theme, which I actually pretty like. Felt like I haven't heard it in a long time. He dragged out Callum Newman from United Empire with him. Callum Newman had wrestled earlier in the match and wasn't booked for this one, but later on will become very much a part of the match. He brought a beat up Callum Newman to the ring and handcuffed him to the cage. This distracted Ospreay because he's very much big on Newman and caused him to get attacked in the ring. Newman got handcuffed to the cage, and you will notice because we'll bring him up later on. He stays handcuffed to the cage for a very long time, and part of me wonders like what was that like for him just sitting there for like 30, 40 minutes just like staring at the wrestling and stuff and not really having any real part of the match. The first person to come out for United Empire after the first two wrestlers was Hanare. Right after him, 2 minutes later, came Clark Connors from Bullet Club. Connors had barbed wire wrapped around his left arm as he entered. TJP came next for United Empire, and he got a pretty decent pop from the crowd. This is non-Aswang TJP, but that will change later in the match. He also came with barbed wire. Alex Coughlin from Bullet Club was the next to enter, and he came with maybe, I want to say 20 chairs on his arms. He was T-posing with his arms out, and there were just chairs wrapped by the legs around his arms, and there was a staggering amount on his arms. These chairs very quickly became a part of the match. TJP was thrown onto the chairs, and more chairs were piled on top of him. And then this sandwich of chairs and TJP was what Hinari was thrown onto. Francesco Akira came out next. He had the most interesting sort of story arc in this match, and we'll get into that later. But he came out, he came from the crowd, climbed on top of the cage, and did a cross body onto three or so Bullet Club members. Gabe Kidd came into the match next, and he brought out a dumpster of weapons. I think there was there was kendo sticks, there was a table, and there was a trash can too. Yeah, and then there was some other stuff. I mean, it was a whole dumpster full of things. Jeff Cobb from United Empire was the next person to enter. Around this time, Henare started bleeding really badly, and you didn't see it on camera, but there was updates being made by the commentary that he was really bleeding uh you know, quite heavily, and you see him come back later in the match, and he has just like just this he just has like this massive amount of bandaging around his head. So I was curious, like when watching this, how much of that was maybe being played up, because the concern from the commentary made it sound like they almost thought for a second he was just gonna get taken out of the match in the opening few minutes. Francesco Akira was getting beat up in the ring by Bullet Club. He was suplexed onto a stood-up chair, but then his tag partner TJP came in to save him. But it was not just the normal TJP, it was TJP and his Aswang alter ego. They did a double team move, and TJP was there to save him. Hanari came back into the match at this point. He had just a huge wrapping of bandages around his head. There was a great sequence in the ring around this time where a Mamba splash from TJP stopped a pin attempt from Bullet Club. TJP then went for a pinfall attempt of his own, but then Drilla Maloney landed the Drilla Killa, his move, onto the pin attempt to break it up then. Everybody got into the ring at this point. There was a brawl featuring everyone. People went their separate ways and made it just Ospreay and Finlay in the ring once again. Connors got involved here as Ospreay went to the apron, but was speared off the apron by Connors and through a table which Ospreay had previously suspended between the apron and the cage. There was then an exchange between Hanare and Kid in the ring, which I thought was great. One of the highlights of the match, in my opinion. These guys had their singles match last week to build up the hype for this match, and for them to have so many this big exchange in the ring here that I'm just about to talk about really felt like a nice callback to their previous match, and was really like easily one of the top moments of the entire match. So they started dueling with chairs. Uh, Kid swung his chair at Hanare, but Hanare stopped it by punching the seat. He then punched the seat again, punching through the cover on the chair, and then Hanare swung his chair, absolutely smashed it over the head of Kid, causing the seat in that chair to go flying. Kid seemed hurt by this for a few seconds, woozy on his feet, and then all of a sudden he powered up and came forward at Hanare with slaps, but Hanare landed another really hard blow on Kid, absolutely clobbering him with a slap and causing him to fall. These two guys are absolutely wild with their striking. We saw this in the match last week between them at Korakuen Hall, and it was shown again here, and it was easily like one of the moments that stuck out the most to me when I was going through my notes after and thinking about this match. Right after this, Alex Coughlin gave kendo sticks to TJP and Akira and sort of uh, encouraged them to hit them with the kendo sticks. He took shots from both of them and then ate a double team move that sent him out of the ring. That was kind of a silly spot in my opinion. Coughlin was put onto two tables at ringside. and then Hanare climbed up onto the cage and dove off the cage through the tables. And even though the cage doesn't give you too much height, this was a pretty cool looking spot, so I did enjoy that. Connors laid out thumbtacks in the ring and tried to put TJP into them, but it was Connors himself who ended up going through them as TJP tossed him into it. Connors got back up onto his feet and then ate a kick from TJP, causing him to fall flat on his back onto the tacks once again. Ospreay and Finlay were in a one-on-one exchange again in the ring. This time, they were sort of teasing that a finish could come here. Ospreay tried for an Os cutter, but got it reversed into a stunner by Finlay. Ospreay then got up from this and hit a hidden blade immediately after, sort of using the momentum of getting hit by a move to land that move and cause a near fall. Finlay landed his into oblivion finishing move, his knee strike finishing move, twice in a row for a near fall, and that was sort of the end of that exchange. Great Khan, who was on the card earlier in the night, did a run in from backstage. He got a key to free Callum Newman from the handcuff that had him on the cage. We're nearly 50 minutes into the match now, and think about how Newman has been there basically the entire time attached to the cage. Newman came in and did a save during the match. TJP did his Oswong spray onto Finlay, and then Ospreay and Newman did stereo Os cutters off the ropes, which looked incredible, and it was a not so subtle signal that what they saw in Ospreay at one point is what they see now in Newman, and they kind of want to elevate him as the maybe the next Ospreay in the promotion is what I think I sort of gained from that moment. So around the 50-minute mark at this point, Ospreay tried for the hidden blade, got it stopped by Maloney, who stabbed him with a fork. Kid then pile drived Ospreay through a table. Maloney tried stabbing Francesco Akira with a fork. He hit him in the forehead with it, but Akira awakened due to this and was able to stab Maloney with a fork and then went after Clark Connors with a fork as well. The storyline heading into this match with Akira was the idea that he hated the idea of working hardcore matches using weapons, but in the build-up matches, he was always the one getting targeted, getting put through tables, and getting hit with weapons and things of that nature, and it was something he was forcibly subjected to numerous times during this rivalry. And in this match, it was finally a moment where he was so sick of getting hit with all these weapons and getting, stabbed with all these things that it caused him to do a full 180 and go extreme in this match. And this moment where he was awoken with these fork shots to the head was sort of that moment that everybody sort of knew was coming, but was just waiting for that specific turn from him. They finally got it here, and it was honestly a pretty cool moment in the match. One of the highlights that stuck out, along with the Hanare Kid exchange earlier. Bullet Club wiped out the United Empire guys in the ring and then decided to, late in the match, take the ring apart. This was a part in the match where I thought the some steam was really lost. They were cooking for like the first hour or so, but then around this point, the momentum was really lost. We had all these really fun exchanges. There was this, despite being a very long match, there was this momentum which just kept building up and up, and it felt like we were really getting close to a finish. But once they started taking apart the ring, a certain sort of stride that they were in kind of came to an end. Part of the issue is the fact that taking apart the ring takes quite a long time. I mean, the canvas is very tied together, and there's padding behind it that you need to peel off as well. So it took quite a while before they were actually just standing on boards in the ring, and there was still a part of the ring that had some mat to it, but it was mostly boards at this point. There was spots attempted in these final few minutes, but the issue with the boards in the ring is that like if you stand on one side of the board, the other side might tilt up, and like there started to be holes in the ring because of the boards becoming uneven and moving around. So all the stuff that happened in the ring at this point, people had to be very careful so as to not trip and fall through into the ring, or not lose their balance or something like that. It was very like, it seemed like actually quite dangerous. Akira was pile driven into the ring off the corner, and then Ospreay broke up a pinfall attempt onto Akira. This was sort of the real finishing sequence here. Ospreay made the save for Akira, but found himself cornered by all of Bullet Club after this point. Finlay gave Ospreay one free shot. He went on his knees and said, "I'll give you one free shot. Just land one shot on me." But Ospreay, a bloodied and tired wrestler at this point after an hour of wrestling, He tried for the hidden blade, but he fell short, falling on the canvas, not being able to hit Finley. He was then picked up and speared, and then hit with an into oblivion onto a barbed wire knee of Finley for the finish. So there's the rundown of the 64-minute and 5-second match that headlined the card in Osaka this weekend. I want to go through my main points of the match. I'm going to start by saying that I think it was the smart move to have Bullet Club win. You have this set of young guys in Bullet Club who are all absolutely killing it in their heel roles. And I think they absolutely deserve the credit for being that heel group who just deserves a strong push like this. I feel like it's been hard to find a specific moment where War Dogs as a whole were just getting this collective push. We saw Finley with the Never title last year, and then we saw uh, Connors, Coughlin, Maloney, and Kidd all earn tag titles, but those reigns were really short-lived. I don't really think they did too much. This was a big match where they got to really put themselves over against another team and against Will Ospreay, who's one of the top names in the promotion. I also think that the outcome here really brings forward a very interesting storyline, a storyline that I think a lot of people saw coming, and it's sort of wondering what the future of United Empire is. Now that Will Ospreay is gone, their leader is gone, the most powerful guy in that faction, what do they do? That was a question that was going to sort of come up no matter what happens because Ospreay was leaving. And you sort of give that storyline more ammunition when they have this really hard fought hour-long match and they end up losing, even when Ospreay's there. And now it's like, we're coming off a loss, Ospreay's gone. What's the future of this faction? And I think that's a really interesting storyline to sort of flesh out in the months to come. I really enjoyed how this match focused on Francesco Akira, and I like the mini spotlight we got of Callum Newman. Francesco Akira, the whole storyline of him sort of getting put through hell by Bullet Club and eventually overcoming that for this match, and getting these big moments in the ring, I thought it was really great. It made him look amazing. There was a huge spotlight on him, and this is just a huge match for him. I think about all the guys in this match. Some of them weren't so much in the spotlight. Some of them really were. One of those guys who was in the spotlight, despite not being uh, one of the main characters in the storyline, easily is Francesco Akira. Callum Newman coming in and getting that spot where he could hit the Os cutter with Ospreay. That was a very great moment, especially since in Ospreay's post-match comments, he said that he sees a lot of himself in Callum Newman. So I feel like that's interesting foreshadowing about how Ospreay sees him, how the promotion sees him, and so on. I like the mini storylines in this, the storyline of Ospreay and Finley always finding themselves in that sort of singles match against each other at moments inside the ring. And I have heaps of praise on Hanare and Kidd, who have absolutely been killing it since last week and continue to kill it in this match. So those are, a lot of the positives I have for this match. The biggest negative I have for this match easily has to be that once they started taking apart the ring, it just felt like the momentum of this match just got slowed. The brakes were hit so badly, and it felt like something was taken out of the finish and those final few moments because of it. I like the finishing sequence of Ospreay being too tired to even land that free shot on Finley, but I just the way that the pace so suddenly came to a stop or came to a slow after the ring was taken apart, I really wasn't a fan of. And it's so hard for a match that goes an hour to make you never wonder when it's going to end or be like, okay, what like when's the finish? Are we coming up on it? Like let's get this going. I didn't have that feeling for easily 50-55 minutes of the match. But once the ring started getting taken apart and once the pace really, really slowed down, that's when I started thinking, okay, let's see how we're gonna finish this up here. Let's try to find the exit route to sort of get this match over with. If they were able to find a way to put together a strong finish before they got to the point where they took the ring apart, this would have been like a almost an excellent no notes match for me. But that was my one critique. I do want to stress this was a great match, and I think that if you are a fan of anyone in this match, you should check this out. You should find an hour or so of your day to watch this. But that's just the main critique I have of this match. I think gimmick matches like this should be used sparingly by New Japan. And one thing I've been defensive of before for them is the fact that a lot of the times they do those gimmick matches, the King of Pro Wrestling type stuff, it is on the smaller, sort of inconsequential cards, or for an inconsequential belt like the KOPW belt, which I just mentioned. I did like having this stipulation here, but I do hope that New Japan doesn't go too overboard with these types of matches. I'm not worried about that right now, but I think it is something to flag. So we've gone quite a while here on this podcast now, and we just talked about the main event. We have still so many other things to talk about this card. And since I try to keep these pods short, we are going to really run through the rest of the show in a quicker fashion. The co-main event was Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson facing off for the second time. This was a rematch from their AEW Wrestle Dream match, which took place last year. This was a lengthy 32 minutes, and Zack Sabre Jr. was able to get the win in the end in a exchange of roll-up pins. He eventually put together a roll-up pin that earned him the victory. And that capped off what I would describe as a long and captivating match. This was a very fun, grappling heavy contest. It really showed, the technical skills of both of these guys. I feel like a match that has this much grappling in it and this much mat work is something that you so rarely see. But it's one of those things where you can still tell when it's happening by with guys like Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson how quality it is. And I really did enjoy this match. And similar to the main event, I would recommend people see this. I mean, the core of these two matches was just like made this such a great card. Things started to fall apart a little lower on the lineup, and we're gonna get to that next. El Phantasmo and Hikuleo put their IWGP Tag Team Championships on line against Chase Owens and Kenta. These two teams faced off last month for the New Japan Strong titles, which Phantasmo and Hikuleo hold. They retained the belts in that match. It was not a good match. It lasted around 20 minutes or so, and it dragged, it had no momentum, was not fun. So the question really is heading into this one, like, why was this match made? Like, what was the reasoning? That's what I was wondering heading into it. I was even more baffled heading out of this match. So I'm gonna give you the finishing sequence here. Kenta avoid a choke slam by getting himself tangled with the referee. He then attacked the back of Hikuleo's leg while he was busy trying to figure out the whole referee situation. Hikuleo escaped a GTS attempt and then landed a power slam. ELP scored a super kick. Hikuleo landed a choke slam, and then Phantasmo scored a frog splash off the ropes. That's like their finishing sequence. But Owens pulled the referee out of the ring, more referee tomfoolery here, to stop the pin attempt. Taiji Ishimori then came into the ring, not in the match, but involved in the match since he represents Bullet Club, and hit Phantasmo with a belt while the referee was down. He hit Hikuleo as well, so he couldn't make the save. Kenta then went for the pin to win in 13 minutes. So it is 2024, and Kenta, who is really, I mean, he has an incredible body of work as a wrestler, but he has quite honestly struggled as a wrestler for the past year or so. He now holds a championship along with Chase Owens, and they major belts off of a tag team act, which I thought were doing pretty well. They won at Wrestle Kingdom, and their act seems pretty over. I'm a little confused by this. I don't really understand what New Japan's going for here. Sometimes it's just so wild that some of the amazing stuff we see in this promotion happens under the same roof that other things does. Because it's like the incredible minds that brought you the 64-minute main event, the incredible minds that booked Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson for a 30-minute classic. They also brought you this match, which just makes no sense. The pairing and the result. It's just very confusing. Before then, the sort of first of four big matches on this card, we saw Kazuchika Okada face Hiroshi Tanahashi. These two have faced each other a trillion times. Their sort of the history of their careers are so linked together, and this is the last time they're going to face off, I assume, in singles action before Okada leaves. Okada does have two more dates with New Japan later this month, before he is, per a Fightful report that broke today, heading over to AEW after that. The story of this match was Okada trying and failing to land his Rainmaker. He tried numerous times early on to land it and kept getting stopped by Tanahashi, but he eventually did connect it, 16 minutes and landing it after slamming Tanahashi down to break a stalemate position. And that scored him the victory and beat Tanahashi in just under 17 minutes. This was a match that it wasn't bad, but it did struggle to gain steam. And by the end of the finish, it did still feel like it didn't really get the crowd too into it. I'm not too upset about this match because I didn't have super high expectations about it. I saw it was lower on the card, and I knew it probably wasn't going to get a long amount of time in the ring. And this is just not a really, this wasn't a high stakes match. I mean, these guys have faced off before and there was that history there, and it's a nice send off to do for Okada, but I just wasn't expecting some sort of wild, 5-star classic here. So was it not that interesting? Yeah, but I also just I wasn't um super let down about that, I guess I should say. So now we're just going to run down the undercard. We had four more matches on this show. We had the team of Doki, Sanada, Taichi, Takamichinoku, and Yuya Uemura beating Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito, and Yota Tsuji in 11 minutes. The finish here was Sanada scoring a skull end onto Bushi. Lots of storylines at play here: Uemura and Tsuji, Takagi and Taichi, and those two were seemingly more interesting than the title program of Tetsuya Naito and Sanada, and I think that says something. Match before then was Evil, Ren Narita, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi defeating El Desperado, Shota Umino, Tiger Mask, and Tomoaki Honma in 8 minutes. Sho won with a low blow on Tiger Mask. This match was a preview of the Shota Umino versus Evil Never Openweight match, which is going to be happening in a couple of weeks. Umino was spray painted after the match in the same way that the Never Openweight belt was spray painted by Evil recently. Second match of the night, Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi beat United Empire's Callum Newman and Great Khan. Bishamon hit their double team finishing move to win the match on Newman. I thought Newman got some shine this match, and he also got shine in the main event, so it was a pretty great night for him. There was a light opening match as Toru Yano and Yo defeated Oleg Boltin and Ryusuke Taguchi. This was just under 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 45 seconds is the time I put down. The finish to this match actually was kind of funny because, I'm critical of Yano and his comedy because so much of it is repetitive and it just feels so tiring to see over and over and over again. We actually saw a pretty funny, uh, comedic end to his match here. Oleg Boltin, he does this thing with wrestlers where he lifts them and then he shifts them from one side of his body to the other, sort of like a workout with them. And he tried to do this with his tag partner Taguchi. Like he tried to make them both do it to their opponents at the same time. Oleg was able to get started doing this on Yano, but Taguchi, he was a little weaker when he tried doing this with Yo, causing him to eventually drop Yo. So Yo escaped from this and scored a roll-up pin on Taguchi while Bolton was still busy doing this workout with Yano. So he was distracted, and the match ended in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. So it was actually a fun finish. That's the rundown of today's show, The New Beginning in Osaka 2024 at the Edion Arena, Osaka. It was a fun show. I think that, if I would recommend people watch things, I would say watch the top two matches from this show. And then if you really want to catch that Okada Tanahashi match, although I don't think it was necessarily a huge must-see match in my opinion. Those top two matches, though, I highly recommend you see both of those. They are two incredibly different types of matches, but they are two very entertaining ones in the style that they are trying to do. Few quick notes here before we get going. New Japan Pro Wrestling is starting their Fantastica Mania tour tomorrow, doing shows with Lucha Libre promotion CMLL. Those are very, small deal shows, not too much really happens on them. So we're not going to have podcast coverage of those. But yeah, those are going to be happening over the next week or so. The next big New Japan show is going to be on February 23rd, the first of two nights for the New Beginning in Sapporo. I have the lineup here. I'm going to give a rundown for it since that's the next time you're going to hear from me. So here's the matchups that are going to be happening in Sapporo. We have from Stardom with the IWGP Women's title online, a title we haven't seen on a New Japan show in Japan in quite a while, I think. Mayu Iwatani facing Mina Shirakawa. We're going to have El Desperado and Sho in a singles match. Evil putting his never open weight championship on the line against Shota Umino. a 10-man tag match as Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, Tetsuya Naito, and Yota Tsuji face Doki, Sanada, Taichi, Taka Michinoku, and Yuya Uemura. I think they're in a tag match as a preview for their special matches, which happen on the second card of the weekend. A New Japan World TV title match as Hiroshi Tanahashi puts his belt on the line against Matt Riddle. I think that is his second time putting the belt on the line, with the first one dating back to New Year Dash, just a day after he dethroned Zack Sabre Jr. And then David Finlay is going to return, putting his IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship on the line against Nick Nemeth, also known as Dolph Ziggler from his WWE run. One last news story before we get out of here. We did touch on the Okada joining AEW, and that's a huge story, especially since he's going to be joining Will Ospreay and so many other former New Japan guys there. But also announced during today's card is that they're going to run their Resurgence show in the US this year on May 11th at the Toyota Arena in Ontario, California. Now, folks, the Toyota Arena is a huge venue. That's absolutely massive venue, so it's gonna be interesting to see how they do on tickets. They have a show in Chicago coming up, which is in a pretty big venue as well. I think it's in the Wintrust, which AEW has run in the past as well, and they're actually doing pretty incredible on ticket sales there. So I'm interested to see how this show in California will do. So that will do it for today's time limit audio edition. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the audio reviews for the Sapporo cards. If you want to read some written work, head over to timelimit.substack.com and consider signing up for free. I got to get going, but I will see you soon.